I was standing in my own kitchen, the kitchen where I'd cooked 50,000 meals, where I'd taught my son how to crack an egg without getting shells in the bowl, where my husband used to sneak up behind me and wrap his arms around my waist while I was stirring gravy, and my daughter-in-law was holding up my wedding ring. She was holding it between her thumb and forefinger, like it was something she'd found stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "Nobody wants this old thing anyway," she laughed, tossing it into a cardboard box labeled, "Free Junk." My wedding ring. The ring my husband had saved for 6 months to buy. The ring he'd placed on my finger on a warm June afternoon in 1974, his hands shaking so badly he could barely get it past my knuckle. The ring I'd worn every single day for 47 years. And my son, my only child, the boy I'd rocked to sleep, the boy I'd stayed up with through fevers and nightmares, the boy I'd worked double shifts to put through college, just stood there, leaning against the refrigerator, drinking a beer, watching his wife treat his mother's most precious possession like garbage. He didn't say a word. He didn't even flinch. And in that moment, standing in my own home, surrounded by my own things, I realized something that cracked me open in a way I'd never expected. They weren't just forgetting me. They were erasing me. But here's the thing about being erased. Sometimes when people try to wipe you out completely, they miss the parts that matter most. What my daughter-in-law didn't know, what my son had apparently forgotten, was that hidden inside that plain gold band was something my husband had protected for 30 years. A secret, a code, a key to something they couldn't even begin to imagine. She thought she was getting rid of a worthless old ring. She was actually throwing away their future. And me? I was done being invisible. My name is Eleanor Walsh. I'm a widow. I've been a widow for 4 years now, though some days it feels like 4 minutes. My husband, Frank, was the love of my life. And I don't say that lightly. We met in 1972, when I was a secretary at a small manufacturing company, and he was working in the mailroom. He was tall and quiet, with hands that were always a little bit dirty, and a smile that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We dated for 2 years. He proposed with that ring, a simple gold band, a tiny diamond that cost more than he made in a month. I never wanted anything fancy. I just wanted him. We got married at the courthouse, had a small reception at my parents' house, and started our life together in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. I can still hear the hum of the dryers at night. It was our lullaby. Frank was ambitious, but not in an aggressive way. He just believed in hard work. He believed in showing up, doing your job, and treating people with respect. He started in the mailroom, then moved to inventory, then sales, then management. By the time we hit our 40s, he'd worked his way up to vice president. But he never forgot where he came from, and he never forgot the people who helped him along the way. "The company isn't about the building, Ellie," he used to tell me. "It's about the people. Always remember that. Treat people right, and everything else follows." And he did treat people right. He knew everyone's name. He remembered their kids' birthdays. He stayed late to help new employees learn the ropes. When the company hit hard times in the late 80s, Frank took a pay cut so they didn't have to lay anyone off. I was so proud of him, so incredibly proud. We had our son Michael in 1979. He was a beautiful baby, chubby cheeks, tufts of dark hair, a temper that could shake the walls. We both did. Michael was everything to us. We saved for his college fund before we saved for our own retirement. We gave him piano lessons, baseball gloves, the best school we could afford. We wanted him to have opportunities we never had. And for a long time, Michael was a good kid. Not perfect, no one is, but he had a good heart. He was kind. He was thoughtful. He used to bring me flowers he picked from the neighbor's yard. He'd write me little notes and leave them under my pillow. "Dear Mom," he wrote when he was 7. "You are the best mom in the whole world. I love you more than ice cream." I still have that note. It's in my jewelry box. I don't look at it much anymore. It hurts too much. Michael met Angela when he was 26. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Blonde, polished, with a smile that could light up a room. She came from money. Old money, the kind where you don't talk about it but everyone knows. Her family had summer homes, winter homes, vacation homes. They had people who did things for them. I knew from the very first moment I met her that she didn't think we were good enough. It wasn't anything she said outright. It was the way she looked at our house. The way she touched our dishes like she was afraid she'd catch something. The way she called me Eleanor instead of Mrs. Walsh. even though I asked her not to. But Michael was happy, and that's all that mattered. Frank, bless his heart, tried so hard to make her feel welcome. He'd make her favorite coffee. He'd ask about her family. He'd tell her stories about Michael when he was little, hoping she'd see the boy we loved. She'd just smile, nod, check her phone. "She's just nervous, honey," Frank would tell me when we were alone. "She's not used to us yet." But she was never going to get used to us, because she didn't want to. Michael proposed after a year of dating. Angela's father paid for the wedding, a lavish affair with 500 guests, a string quartet, and a cake that cost more than my first car. Michael looked happy. Angela looked like a queen. Frank and I sat in the back row. We wore our best clothes. We gave a toast that was polite but too long, too sentimental, too us. Angela's family barely acknowledged us. After the wedding, things changed. Michael didn't call as much. He'd miss Sunday dinners. He'd forget birthdays. When I'd ask if everything was okay, he'd say he was just busy. Work was crazy. Angela had plans. The house needed renovations. I understood. I told myself I understood. He was building his own life. That's what children do. That's what we raised him to do. But somewhere along the way, he stopped being our son. He started being Angela's husband. And Angela made sure he knew where his loyalty should be. The first time I realized something was really wrong was at Christmas. Frank and I had hosted Christmas dinner for 37 years. It was our tradition. I'd cook for 3 days straight. Turkey, ham, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, pumpkin pie, pecan pie, my famous apple crisp. The house would smell like cinnamon and love. Frank would hang the lights, set up the tree, and pretend to complain about the mess, while secretly enjoying every minute of it. Michael grew up with that tradition. He knew how much it meant to us. That year he called 2 days before Christmas. "Mom, I'm really sorry, but we're going to Angela's parents' house this year." I remember I was holding a bag of flour. I just stood there frozen in the middle of the kitchen, flour dusting my apron. "Okay. Well, I guess It's just easier, Mom. Her parents have a bigger house, more room for everyone. But we always—" I know. We'll come by on Boxing Day, promise." He didn't come on Boxing Day. He didn't come for 3 weeks. When he finally showed up, it was just for an hour. Angela stayed in the car. She didn't even get out. The next year, Christmas was at Angela's parents' house again. And then the year after that, and the year after that. Frank started calling it the exile. He'd try to make jokes about it, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. That was his boy, his only son. And his boy had chosen someone else. When Frank got sick, really sick, the kind of sick that doesn't get better, I thought Michael might come back to us. I thought surely this would bring him home. "Your father isn't doing well," I told him over the phone. My voice was shaking. I was trying so hard to stay calm. "The doctors say it's time to start making arrangements." "I'll try to get down there," Michael said. "I've got a lot going on at work right now. Angela's got this charity thing coming up." "Michael, he's dying." "I know, Mom, I know. I'll be there, I promise." He didn't come, not once. Angela sent a fruit basket. She called it, "Thinking of You." When Frank passed away, Michael showed up for the funeral. He looked handsome in his black suit. He shook hands with the mourners. He told everyone how much his father had meant to him. And then he left. Angela needed him at home. I stood at my husband's grave alone, watching the dirt settle over the love of my life. And I realized that I was alone. Truly, completely alone. After Frank died, things got worse. Much worse. Angela had always been cold, but now she was openly hostile. She treated me like an inconvenience, a burden, a problem to be managed. "Michael," she'd say right in front of me, "your mother really needs to think about downsizing. This house is too much for her." "I'm fine," I'd say. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." She'd just roll her eyes. "Of course you are, Eleanor, but we're just thinking of your safety. What if you fall? What if something happens?" What she really meant was, "We want your house. We want your money. We want you gone." Michael never defended me. He'd just nod along, mumble something about doing what's best, and change the subject. They started coming over more often, but it wasn't to visit. It was to help. Angela would go through my cabinets muttering about how I had too much stuff. She'd pull out dishes, blankets, old photos, things Frank had given me, things I'd collected over a lifetime, and she'd decide what was worth keeping. "This is broken, Eleanor." "It's not broken. It's a vintage milk glass bowl. Frank's mother gave it to me. Well, it's ugly, and it's taking up space. She took my dishes, my linens, Frank's old fishing rod, the wooden rocking chair I'd nursed Michael in. We can get you a new one, she'd say. Something that doesn't look like it belongs in a museum. I didn't want modern. I wanted my things. But I didn't fight back. I just nodded, smiled, let her take whatever she wanted. Because I was tired. I was so tired. And then came the garage sale. It was a Saturday morning in July. Angela had decided it was time to purge. She'd placed ads on social media, put up signs in the neighborhood. She'd even invited her friends to come shop the estate sale. The estate sale. Like I was already dead. I sat on the porch that morning, watching strangers pick through my life. They held up Frank's old shirts, my grandmother's china, Michael's baby toys. They haggled over prices like it was a flea market. "Mom, you should come see," Michael said, trying to sound cheerful. "We're making good money. Angela's a genius at this." I didn't move. I just watched. And then I saw it. Angela was holding my wedding ring. She'd found it in the bathroom, where I'd left it on the counter while I was washing my hands. I always took it off when I was doing dishes. I didn't want to damage the band. Frank's hands had worn it smooth over the years, and I was so careful with it. But I'd forgotten to put it back on, and Angela had grabbed it. "Nobody wants this old thing anyway," she announced, holding it up for the crowd to see. "It's just plain gold, no style, no taste. I'm tossing it in the free pile." She threw it into the box. It landed with a soft clink. And Michael stood there, leaning against the refrigerator, drinking a beer, watching. I waited for him to say something, to grab the box and hand me the ring and say, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have." He didn't say anything. He just took another sip of his beer. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Something I didn't even know was still there. I got up from the porch. I walked over to the box. I reached in and pulled out my ring. "Actually," I said, my voice surprisingly calm, "I'll keep this." Angela rolled her eyes. "Fine, whatever. It's worthless anyway." I slid the ring back onto my finger. It felt heavy. It felt like it was filled with something I couldn't quite name. I smiled at her. "You might be right. It might be worthless." She didn't see the look in my eyes. She was too busy counting the money. But Michael saw it. And for just a second, he looked scared. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my wedding ring catching the moonlight. I turned it over and over in my fingers. I thought about Frank. I thought about the day he'd given it to me. "It's not much," he'd said, his hands trembling. "But it's honest work. Just like me." I'd laughed and kissed him and told him it was perfect. But I never told him about my secret. Not the whole truth. Frank had always been careful with money. He grew up poor. I mean genuinely poor. The kind of poor where you don't know if there's going to be dinner. The kind of poor where you wear your older brother's hand-me-downs until they're threadbare. So when he started making money, he was careful. He invested. He saved. He never spent more than he had to. But he had a side of him that was secretive. I don't want to call it shady, because he was the most honest man I'll ever knew. But he liked secrets. He liked having something that no one else knew about. "It's good to have a backup plan, Ellie," he'd said. "You never know what life's going to throw at you." I thought he was just talking about savings, an emergency fund, a little extra in the bank in case something happened. But he was talking about something much, much bigger. The company Frank had worked for all those years, the one he'd started in the mailroom, the one he'd helped build into a multi-million-dollar operation, had gone through a lot of changes. Mergers, acquisitions, the kind of corporate restructuring that leaves people behind. But Frank had been smart. He'd seen it coming. "Ellie, I need you to promise me something," he'd said, a few months before he got sick. His voice was weak, but his eyes were still sharp. "If something happens to me, don't let them take everything." "What are you talking about?" I'd asked. "We don't have anything to take." He'd smiled. The old smile. The one that made me fall in love with him. "You have more than you know." He'd handed me a key. A small brass key. The kind you'd use for a safety deposit box. "There's a bank downtown," he'd said. First National. The box is under my name, but you're listed as the beneficiary. Frank, what's in the box? What you need. He died a few weeks later, and I'd shoved the key in my jewelry box and forgotten about it. Because I was too sad, too tired, too heartbroken to care. But after that garage sale, after Angela threw my ring in the junk pile, I started thinking about Frank's words. Don't let them take everything. I found the key the next morning. It was hidden in the lining of my jewelry box, tucked behind my mother's pearls. I drove downtown. I walked into First National. I told the teller I needed to open the safety deposit box. It'll just be a moment, she said, smiling. What's the name on the account? Frank Walsh. Her smile flickered. She typed something into her computer, and then she looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mrs. Walsh, she said, her voice suddenly softer. I think you need to talk to our manager. My heart was pounding as I followed her to a small office. The manager, a kind-faced woman named Diane, sat me down and pulled up a file on her computer. Walsh, you've been listed as the primary beneficiary on this account for over 30 years, she said. Did you know that? I don't understand. Your husband, Frank Walsh, opened a safety deposit box here in 1984. He's been adding to it ever since. She slid a piece of paper across the desk. It was a list of contents: bonds, stocks, deed to the family business, and a letter, dated just a few months before Frank died. The letter was simple, 3 sentences. Ellie, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was protecting you. The company is yours. The shares are yours. They don't know. And when they try to take everything, they'll realize they were never in control. I read the letter 3 times, 4 times. I couldn't breathe. The company? I whispered. Diane nodded. Your husband was a very shrewd investor, Mrs. Walsh. He didn't just work for that company. Over the years, he acquired a substantial number of shares. He was the largest shareholder. He has been for a long time. But my son works there. He runs the company. He told me he was the one in charge. Diane's expression flickered with something that looked like pity. Your son is CEO, she said carefully. But he doesn't own the company. You do. Your husband never transferred those shares, and according to his will, they passed to you upon his death. I sat back in my chair. The room was spinning. How much? I asked. Diane hesitated. Let's just say, it's a substantial amount, Mrs. Walsh. More than enough to live very comfortably for the rest of your life. And more than enough to make some changes if you wanted. I thought about Angela. I thought about Michael. I thought about the ring they'd tried to throw away. And I smiled. I think, I said slowly, it's time to make some changes. I didn't say anything for a week. I went home. I put the safety deposit box key back in my jewelry box. I went about my daily routine like nothing had changed. But something had changed. Everything had changed. I started paying attention. I noticed the little things I'd been ignoring. The way Angela spoke to me. The way Michael avoided eye contact. The way they both treated me like I was already gone. Have you thought more about downsizing, Eleanor? Angela asked one afternoon. She was standing in my living room, hands on her hips, looking around like she was appraising a piece of property. I mean, really, this place is way too big for one person. I'm fine here, I said. I like my house. She sighed. You're being stubborn. Michael, tell her. Michael, who was sitting on the couch scrolling through his phone, barely looked up. Mom, she's right. The house is too much. You're getting older. It's not safe. I'm 68, I said. I'm not 100. You're not young either, Angela snapped. Look, Eleanor, we're just trying to help. We found a nice assisted living facility. Very affordable. You'd have your own room. Assisted living. It's not a nursing home, she said quickly. You'd have other people your age to socialize with. You want to put me in a home. I want what's best for you. Michael still didn't look up. What's my son's opinion? I asked. Michael, do you want to put me in a home? He finally looked at me. His face was a mask of indifference. Mom, Angela and I have talked about this. We've made a decision. It's for your own good. My own good? We can't keep worrying about you, Angela said. We have our own lives, our own problems. You can't expect us to. I don't expect anything, I said quietly. I never have. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You've been milking this poor widow thing for years. We've given you everything, we've taken care of you, and you just keep taking. I felt something snap inside me, something that had been holding on by a thread. Taking? I repeated. I raised that boy, I paid for his education, I gave him everything I had, and you want to tell me I've been taking? Mom, Michael started. No, I said, standing up. No, you don't get to do this, you don't get to rewrite history. I've let you take my dishes, my furniture, Frank's things. I've let you treat me like I don't matter, but you don't get to tell me I'm a burden. Angela laughed, a cold, sharp laugh. Oh, here it comes, she said, the guilt trip, the I sacrificed everything for you speech. We've heard it before, Eleanor. It's old. It's tired. It's time to move on. You're right, I said. It is time to move on. I walked to my jewelry box. I pulled out the safety deposit key, and I held it up for both of them to see. Do you know what this is? Angela squinted. A key? It's a key to a safety deposit box, I said. A box that Frank opened 30 years ago, a box he's been adding to ever since. And do you know what's in that box? They stared at me. The deed to the family business, I said. The shares, the stocks, all of it. Frank never transferred a single share to Michael, because he knew. He knew that if he did, you'd take everything. You'd take it, and you'd leave me with nothing. Michael's face went white. That's not true. It's very true, I said. I talked to the bank manager yesterday. I talked to Frank's lawyer. It's all documented. The business doesn't belong to you, Michael. It belongs to me. You're lying, Angela hissed. You're just trying to scare us. Am I? I pulled out the letter. Frank's letter. I held it up and read it out loud. Ellie, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was protecting you. The company is yours. The shares are yours. They don't know. And when they try to take everything, they'll realize they were never in control. I folded the letter and put it back in my pocket. Frank wasn't just a mailroom clerk, I said. He was the largest shareholder. He bought up shares whenever he could. He was a silent partner. And now, I'm the silent owner. Angela looked like she was going to be sick. This is ridiculous. You're just a housewife. You don't know anything about business. I know that I own it, and I know that I can sell it, or close it, or give it away. Michael stepped forward. His face was pale, his hands were shaking. Mom, you can't do that. The company is everything to me. It's my whole life. And I was your whole life, I said quietly, once, before you decided I wasn't worth it. I walked to the door. I opened it. I'll be in touch, I said. Through my lawyer. I closed the door behind me and walked to my car. I didn't look back. But I could hear Angela screaming through the door. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel sorry for her. I had my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, draft the documents. It was surprisingly simple. Frank had set up everything perfectly. The shares were in my name. The business was in my name. The board had no idea. They'd assumed Michael was the controlling shareholder, but he was just a figurehead. You can do whatever you want, Mrs. Walsh, Mr. Henderson told me. Sell it, reorganize it, dissolve it. The choice is yours. I don't want to destroy it, I said. Frank built that company. He loved it. But I don't want them to have it either. Mr. Henderson nodded. You could appoint a new CEO, someone with experience, someone who would run it the way Frank would have wanted. I don't have anyone, I said. He smiled. Actually, you do. He pulled out a file. A name I hadn't heard in years. Frank's old protege, Mr. Henderson said. He left the company years ago because he couldn't stand the way Michael was running things. He's been consulting ever since, but he'd come back. He'd come back in a heartbeat. I looked at the file. I thought about Frank. I thought about the way he'd always talked about this man. He's a good man, I said. Frank always said he was a good man. He is, Mr. Henderson said. And he'd run that company with integrity, the way Frank would have wanted. I signed the papers. The next board meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. Michael showed up in his best suit. Angela was with him. She was always with him, always trying to look like she was part of the company. We have a lot to discuss today, Michael said, taking his seat at the head of the table. The quarterly reports, the new expansion, Excuse me, Mr. Henderson said, stepping in from the hallway. Michael frowned. Who are you? This is a private meeting. I'm Mr. Henderson, he said. I represent the majority shareholder. The room went quiet. The majority shareholder, Michael repeated. That's me. Actually, I said, stepping in from behind Mr. Henderson, it's me. I walked to the table. I sat down in the chair at the end. The one Frank used to sit in, the one Michael had taken as his own. I own the company, I said. Frank left it to me. The shares, the deed, everything. Angela stood up. This is insane. This is fraud. You can't just— I can, I said. And I just did. I nodded to Mr. Henderson. He handed out copies of the documents, the stock certificates, Frank's will, the proof. The company has been legally transferred to my name, I said, and I've made a decision. Michael stared at me. Mom, please, you can't do this to me. You did this to yourself, I said. You chose her over me, over Frank, over everything we gave you. You let her treat me like garbage. You let her throw my wedding ring in a junk pile, and you stood there and watched. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. It's too late for sorry. I turned to the board. I'm appointing a new CEO, I said. Someone who will run this company the way Frank would have wanted. Someone who will treat the employees like people instead of numbers. Angela's face was bright red. Who? You'll find out soon enough. I stood up. Michael, I said, you're fired. Angela, you were never employed here, so I can't fire you, but I can tell you to leave. I gestured to the door. Both of you, now. Michael grabbed my arm. Mom, please, this is everything. I built this company. I put my whole life into it. You built nothing, I said. You inherited everything, and instead of being grateful, you treated me like I was in your way. I'll do better, he said. I'll be better. Please, just give me a chance. I looked at him, the little boy who used to bring me flowers, the little boy who wrote me love notes. I didn't see him anymore. I just saw a stranger. Goodbye, Michael. It's been a year now. I sold the house. I couldn't stay there. Every room reminded me of them, of the way they treated me, of the way I let them. I bought a small cottage by the lake, just big enough for me and my garden. I have a cat now, a stray that showed up one day and decided to stay. I named him Frank. He's a good cat. He doesn't talk much. He doesn't argue. He just sits in my lap and purrs. The company is doing well. Frank's old protege took over as CEO, and he's been amazing. The employees are happy. The profits are up. Frank would have been proud. Michael and Angela tried to sue me. They claimed I was mentally unfit to manage the assets. But Frank had covered all his bases. The will was ironclad. The shares were legitimate, and I had dozens of witnesses who could testify that I was perfectly competent. The lawsuit was thrown out. Michael stopped calling after that. I heard through the grapevine that he and Angela were struggling. She'd left him. She'd gone back to her rich parents, taking whatever money he had left. He was alone. I used to feel guilty about that. I used to lie awake at night, wondering if I'd done the right thing, wondering if I was just as cruel as they were. But then I'd remember the ring, the garage sale, the way he stood there and watched his wife throw away my most precious possession, and I'd stop feeling guilty. I still think about Michael. I still love him. He's my son. He'll always be my son. But love doesn't mean accepting cruelty. Love doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity because someone else has decided you don't matter anymore. Frank used to say, Ellie, you're the strongest person I know. Stronger than you realize. Never forget that. I didn't believe him then. I do now. I don't regret what I did. I don't regret taking back what was mine. I don't regret standing up for myself. And if Michael ever comes back, really comes back not just because he wants something, I'll hear him out. But I never let anyone treat me like I'm invisible again. Because I'm not invisible. I never was. My name is Eleanor Walsh. I'm a widow, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. And I own everything they thought they'd taken from me.